Alrighty guys, let's check out the brand new Red Dragon Archfiend stuff in action. So we're going to see it go first, and we're going to also see it go second. So kind of what is the opening play? So we have a bunch of new support for the archetype to add a lot more consistency. Crimson Gaia is one of their best cards for sure. It just lets you add Red Dragon Archfiend or one card that mentions it. So how many negates and things can we open up with? Well, you get a few disruptions, but it's mostly about bringing back Red Dragon Archfiend. If I'm looking at this deck in terms of it being like high tier meta, it's probably not going to be that. This is going to be a fun deck, probably kind of for some players that just want to throw out a bunch of like boss monsters that are kind of outdated, to be honest. That's kind of what the deck does. I mean, here we see Eddie over here shouts him for his build. You're seeing a Bestial Dissipator, and this is using the newer stuff. I actually was covering this deck a while ago, and there are a few other combos that can open up, you know, to more plays, but you have a Disruption with Bestial Dissipator, you have Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss that can stop one card, and then this card actually brings back another monster, and it kind of does the same thing as Crimson Gaia to bring back another Red Dragon Archfiend. How good is it to bring back a Red Dragon Archfiend? Well, some of the cards will count as Red Dragon Archfiend that, you know, have different names. Let's see how good it is. So he's activating a red zone immediately. Unfortunately, the guy top decks the Nibiru a little bit too late over there, but he activates red zone, and he has the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss to stop the imperm, because it would have stopped Crimson Gaia. But now that he has used 2 effects, he can now activate the 3 tactical talents. So he's able to snatch steal the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, so he can now maybe attack over something, right? He goes for the Angelic play, and unfortunately, the other person had a Ash Blossom, so that's not going to be happening anytime soon. But Crimson Gaia is at least able to bring back a Red Dragon Archfiend. Now at this point, the person in the back is going to basically have very few options, but let's see what the Red Dragon Archfiend player can do on a blank board. Well, it's pretty much game because most of the monsters have insane amounts of attack. So he's able to go ahead and recuperate his losses with Gaia, and then obviously a follow-up play. So that's kind of what we see in this turn 1 gameplay here. But let's go ahead and check out turn 2 of the deck, because technically that opened up turn 1, right? Ash Blossom is there to say no to the play with the Pudding Cess as well as the Vernalizer here. So Resonator Call is activated. We see the Crimson Gaia come out once again, and we're going to see the Resonator come out, bringing out an Oval Loop. So this card is actually pretty cool. So both players kind of opening up with what I would say is a little bit slower of a hand. He's got the ticket ready to go with the Hoot Cake, but Ash Blossom is still in hand. But he's got ability to stop the opponent as well. So Hoot Cake's going to activate its effect. Now we're going to see Imperm activated, and that is going to say no to Hoot Cake's effect. Hoot Cake can attack right over the Crimson Resonator. And then he goes ahead and top deck a Resonator Call, so now he's going to be able to add another one. Remember, this is a continuous during your main phase. You get to add one, which is very, very nice. And then he goes ahead and summons Bone Archfiend, and he's going to be able to activate that effect and decrease its level and go into a Red Rising Dragon. But Veiler is going to say no to that, because this one lets us special summon another Resonator. He activates a Resonator Call, bringing out the Vision Resonator, and then Scar Red Dragon Archfiend comes out. And on top of that, this card is going to be able to be activated. Now, I'm going to go over this because this is kind of fast here. So this card's actually kind of nice, because when a Red Dragon Archfiend monster attacks, keep in mind a lot of the other cards can count as Red Dragon Archfiend, but it gets to flip things face down defense position, which could actually be pretty good for a few different archetypes, but it's only available for when a Red Dragon Archfiend declares an attack. So it's able to go ahead and book everything, so that can be actually pretty good. And then if a monster is destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to special summon another Red Dragon Archfiend from your graveyard. So if you happen to have stuff that can count as Red Dragon Archfiend, that could be very good for the deck. Now he's going to go ahead and attack with the Oval Loop and set a red zone. So that makes it so he's able to just pop a card. This is actually another disruption, so they get like maybe 3-ish disruption / negates, but then it's more so about reoccurring like 2 synchros with like Crimson Gaia, plus there's the other one that brings out another one when the Red Dragon Archfiend goes away. So he goes over, attacks over all. Now this card is actually pretty interesting. In a lot of synchro decks, this card is just kind of good in general. So what it does is if it's in your hand, you target a synchro monster you control, or in your graveyard, you banish it and special summon it. But if this card's in your graveyard, you target a synchro monster you control, and you need to add this card back to your hand. So it's kind of like in its loop. The downside with it is you can only use each effect of it once per turn. Otherwise, it'd be actually out of control, and it's like level eaters of like synchro's brokenness. It's just like kind of like one turn you get another reoccurring thing, which is kind of what the Red Dragon Archfiend archetype does. in terms of like the newer stuff, the new structures or starter deck for them. That's essentially what you're kind of trying to do. I mean, they're still pretty good cards, like the King of All Calamities. I mean, that thing shuts down the deck completely, but he's able to basically board wipe, go ahead and make some more synchros, Red Rising Dragon coming out, and you can see, again, slower decks, like the Modulcha player sadly never got to really pop off. Had they been able to pop off bounce the stuff, yeah, maybe they can go for an OTK. That's what Modulches sometimes can do. But the thing is, Modulches is a very fragile deck in terms of its turn 1 plays. There's not that many like secondary plays to the deck, but I haven't covered this new Red Dragon Archfiend stuff. In fact, I haven't really seen anyone play it for very good reasons. But the guy, he's styled over here. All right, Eddie popping off. All right, he's making the deck actually look somewhat viable. He's got 8,000 attack on Super Nova Dragon, and he's just going absolutely ham here, and I love seeing this. This is kind of just, again, this is kind of stuff where, like, yeah, it looks cool when you can pull it off, but it's usually just like a win harder kind of thing. Okay, he's got his match lead. Is this play gonna go off? Well, unfortunately, he's not going to be able to do anything, because as long as he controls a Red Dragon Archfiend or a Synchro that mentions it, you can just target card field, pop it, and then on top of that, you can target one of your banished Dark Dragon Synchro monsters, and then special summon it. So that's where the the oval loop can actually get a little bit more value as well, because you're banishing stuff. So you can see what the deck is trying to do, and like this is like their super boss. It gains, you know, an insane amount of attack. You can probably one-shot your opponent in a lot of circumstances, but it can be destroyed by opponent's card effects, and once per turn when your opponent's monster effect is activated, or when your opponent declares an attack, as a quick effect, you activate this and banish this card and all cards your opponent controls. And then once per turn in your end phase after this card was banished, you get to resummon it. So it's kind of like Stardust Dragon in that aspect, where you banish everything. It sounds super OP, but like, it's not that easy to pull off. And usually by the time you pull it off in most Yu-Gi-Oh decks, it either would have gotten negated by the player, your opponent over there, or you simply would have won anyways, because it takes so long in terms of the steps to make it. Now, the deck, let's go ahead and hop into a brief little deck profile over here. So what are the new cards? So anything that says OCG is part of the new cards here. I didn't get to talk about this card. Some of the replays were a little fast here, but Prisoner Stone Sweeper is kind of cool, because if it's in the field zone, you get to just special summon this card from your hand. If a card is in the field zone, so if anything's in the field zone, you just bring it out. It's Earthbound stuff over here, but you can only special summon one of them, Earthbound Stone Sweeper once per turn this way, and then on top of that, you discard to add a level 3 or lower Fiend Tuner from your deck to your hand, so that's basically what it's used for. But you can't special monster for the extra for the rest of the turn, except for Fusion and Synchro. Well, that's not a problem at all, because we don't go for links anyways, so this card is just to search out things, but it's kind of important for the deck, as, yeah, this card is pretty dang good. So this is Bone Archfiend. It's just like another easy special summon monster, and on top of that, you get to send another Fiend Tuner from your hand or deck to the graveyard, so you can maybe get some sort of, like, reoccurring stuff. But the main star players, honestly, that make this deck a lot more viable is Soul Resonator, as well as the Vision Resonator. So I'm going to go over these effects real quick, because I try not to like pause the gameplays, because I read your guys' comments, and sometimes people hate it when I pause, but like I have to explain the deck, otherwise people are like, dude, I don't get how does this work. So Soul Resonator, if it's normal or special, you get to add a level 4 or lower Fiend monster from your deck to your hand, except for itself, and then you cannot special monsters from the extract for the rest of the turn, except for Dark Synchros, which is basically the entire deck. So there's no real downside with this at the end of the day. But on top of that, if a card you control will be destroyed by a card effect while you control Red Dragon Archfiend or a Synchro monster that mentions it, you can banish it. So you summon it, you get a search, and on top of that, it has somewhat of a downside, because you only go for darks, but dark synchros, but it's able to protect your cards as well. So that really helps out. Again, even if your cards go away, the whole point of the Red Dragon Archfiend stuff is to bring back the cards, right? And then we have Vision Resonator over here. For 5 or higher dark monsters in the field, you just slam it down, special summon it, and then if this card is sent to the graveyard, you get to add a spell or trap that mentions the Red Dragon Archfiend from your deck to your hand. And then on top of that, the Scar Red Dragon Archfiend, which you guys did see in the gameplay as well. So it becomes the name Red Dragon Archfiend, and then if this card is sent from the monster in the graveyard, you get to special summon another Red Dragon Archfiend. So you can open up with this card, and then on top of it, sent to the graveyard for Dark Dragon Synchro, you can destroy all of your opponent's attack monsters. The problem with this, though, in terms of like all of these steps to go ahead and make it, is that usually you'll just lose between making the combo. Like, do you realistically think your opponent is going to keep all of their attack monsters and not negate, you know, somewhere in the steps to get rid of this card? No. I mean, it's just like an anime that you saw some of the plays where they're synchroing up so many times, and that's kind of what you want to expect to see in a synchro variant deck. But unfortunately, they don't have like any insane protection. Sure, you have this that does protect it in terms of being destroyed. Where is it? You can only go for Dark Synchro. Red Dragon Archfiend Synchro. Where is it? would be destroyed by a card effect. The problem is they can still negate the effect. So if this made it so if your opponent would negate an effect, then I would actually think this deck and archetype would be a lot better. But because they're just going to negate and destroy, they could still negate it and not destroy. They can failure you. Obviously, the person had failed. Like, the deck has problems at the end of the day, but I just wanted to go ahead and show it to you guys because, you know, at the end of the day, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is all about having some fun, especially with this sort of like a deck. So if this deck, you know, if you're interested in playing this, is it going to be meta? Probably not. That's why it's been a while since I was able to actually collect some gameplay. But shout out to Eddie for his build. I'm going to mouse over all of them so you guys can see them. But anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you're new here and want to see more stuff in the future, hit subscribe, turn the bell, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.